Shohei Ohtani.
Hate the big, beautiful bill.
So beautiful, so beautiful.
Turks, Cenk Ugranik is sparing with you guys. We welcome America into our homes and studios.
Not my home.
We don't.
Stay away.
I do make videos from home. Anyway, so a lot of stories. We got a big war between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. This is round 2. And this one's gonna leave a mark. So we're gonna give you all the updates on it in a little bit.
You didn't think that the Epstein files accusation left a mark, maybe a little bit?
No, but I thought that it was potentially recoverable. And I now believe the relationship is permanently severed. No longer recoverable. Everybody cry.
Papers have been filed, irreconcilable differences.
That's what it looks like. So, but we're asking on TYT.com, we'll ask during the segment too, who do you think is gonna win the long war between Trump and Elon? Because it's easy to say Trump's kicking his ass right now, but Elon's the richest man in the world and Trump won't have any power 3.5 years from now. Probably, hopefully, we'll see. So we'll talk about that more a little bit. The Senate has passed the bill just like we told you. Of course, in exactly the way that we told you.
There was hemming and hawing.
And strongly worded letters were filed back and forth, okay? But at the end of the day, exactly what we knew was gonna happen happened, and a lot more, and unfortunately, the carnage in Gaza continues.
So let's get started. Let's do
it.
Go.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
Well, the Senate managed to pass a bill that will add trillions of dollars to our national debt. Now that bill, which is of course dubbed the big beautiful bill, will head over to the House where it will no doubt face some obstacles. But make no mistake about it, it's very likely that this bill will pass in Congress and eventually get signed by Trump. The question is, what will the final bill look like? For now, let's actually break down what remained in the Senate version of the bill, what was added to the bill, and what got cut from the legislation. First, we should note that the bill did pass 51-50 with Vice President JD Vance casting the tie-breaking vote. 3 Republican senators voted against the legislation, including Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, and Rand Paul. Now, every single Democratic senator voted against the bill, and Vice President JD Vance summed up his thoughts on the legislation as follows: the thing that will bankrupt this country more than any other policy is tax cuts for the rich. I'm kidding, he didn't say that, of course he didn't say that. Is flooding the country with illegal immigration and then giving those migrants generous benefits. Right, that's what's bankrupting the country, sure. Everything else, the Congressional Budget Office score, the proper baseline, the minutia, Cenk, of the Medicaid policy is immaterial compared to the ICE money and immigration enforcement provisions. In fact, the Trump administration is about to spend $450 million a year on one immigration detention facility or immigrant detention facility. We're gonna get to that later in the show. But here's how Rand Paul explained his decision to oppose this bill in the Senate. In deciding whether to vote for the big, not so beautiful bill, I've asked a very specific question. Will the deficit be more or less next year? The answer, without question, is this bill will grow the deficit. And according to the Congressional Budget Office, the minutia that JD Vance was referring to, the bill would add $3.3 trillion to the debt over the next decade and cut almost $1 trillion from Medicaid. Oh, thank God. Let's cut money cut funding for programs that help the needy so we can give bigger tax cuts and tax breaks to businesses and to the wealthy. Yeah. And it would also cause almost 12 million more Americans to be uninsured by 2034 as a result of those Medicaid cuts. Now, some Republican senators had concerns about the Medicaid cuts, so there was a provision added to win over some of the holdovers. The bill now provides a $25 billion fund for rural hospitals in order to help absorb the impact of the Medicaid cuts. But make no mistake about it, $1.1 trillion cut for Medicaid obviously is going to impact a lot of Americans. The bill also provides $200 billion for immigration enforcement and border security, and an additional $150 billion for military spending.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about all the people who are full of crap. So let's start with Ron Johnson and Josh Hawley. Two people who pretended to have issues with the bill. They're like, oh, I really want to protect Medicaid. Hey, Josh Hawley, you just voted for over $1 trillion in cuts for Medicaid. You just voted to kick off 12 million people for Medicaid. So a very tall glass of shut up juice for you when you pretend to be a populist and pretend to care about the average guy. Your votes are the only thing that matters. You could run your mouth all day long, but at the end of the day, you did this. And by the way, I don't believe you that you even care.
Yeah, I'm right? There with you at this point.
I think all you're doing is marketing like, oh, golly gee, I didn't want to cut Medicaid. Oh, look at this, somebody forcing my hand to sign yes. No, you voluntarily did that because you don't care. At the end of the day, all you want is a goddamn tax cut.
That's exactly right.
And Ron Johnson, oh my God, it's gonna add so much to the debt. Well, now it's gonna add even more to the debt than when you first started complaining about it. So what made you change your mind? Nothing. You were always gonna vote for tax cuts for the rich. You guys are all a bunch of frauds. So Rand Paul, Tom Tillis, and Susan Collins at least voted no. So they get a tiny bit of partial credit for that. But here's why I'm saying partial, because literally every time, I've now done this just like a dozen times, when Republicans come in and they have a fake fight, and then it gets down to just 1 or 2 votes every single time. So why do they do that? Because they only need 50. They don't need anything more than that. So what they do is they release the votes. So they say to Susan Collins, we know you can't win in Maine unless you pretend to be a moderate. So we'll let you vote against this bill so you could pretend. Rand Paul, we know you're pretending to be a libertarian, even though you say that you would do the tax cuts, which would create the giant deficit in the first place. So I don't even really know what the hell you're complaining about. Well, you wanted to cut $2 trillion for Medicaid? What are you complaining about? You say you do the tax cuts. That's what's creating the giant deficit and debt problem. So Rand Paul, you get to pretend you're principled. The only guy I'll give 3/4 credit to is Tom Tillis, because he's taking the vote, voting no, and then getting the hell out of Dodge. He's just quitting because he's like, all right, I voted no against Trump and I'm leaving.
Okay, so I want to just quickly blame Democrats as well. Okay, and you might be wondering, what do you mean? They don't have the majority, they all voted no on this bill. You're right about that. But notice how Republicans managed to pass this bill in the Senate through reconciliation, meaning all they needed was a simple majority vote to get this passed. Interesting how the parliamentarian isn't really much of a problem. Like there was a little bit of, there were whispers last week about how the parliamentarian is gonna strike down this provision and that provision. What happened? What happened? They're cutting even more from Medicaid.
Yeah, Anna.
Can you explain that to me a little bit?
Yeah, so let's, look, guys, this is why we tell you, it's not about saying, when we criticize the Democrats, please stop thinking about it in binary terms. That doesn't mean we like the Republicans. So what it means is, this is a game they're playing on.
I hate all of them. Okay. To be abundantly clear, I think politicians in both parties don't give a damn about you. Democrats campaign on passing these incredibly important provisions that are supposedly gonna make your life so much better. Your taxpayer money is finally gonna go toward programs that benefit you and your fellow Americans, we promise. Then they pretend as soon as the legislation gets to the Senate, well, what can we do? What can we do? The Senate parliamentarians struck down the provision.
Yeah, so look, that's the point I was going to. When the Democrats are in charge, you all remember, they kept saying that the parliamentarian was the most important person in the country, and they just couldn't do 80%, 85% of their agenda because of that dastardly parliamentarian. So last week, there was rumblings of a parliament, and then it's gone.
Gone.
And the Democrats talk so much more about the parliamentarian when they're in charge rather than when they're in the opposition. Shouldn't they talk a lot more about the parliamentarian when they're in the opposition? Shouldn't they be like, no, the parliamentarian says no, the parliamentarian. Yet I don't hear a single thing about the parliamentarian. So it's a game, it's a shell game. The same thing with MSNBC and Fox News. They just go back and forth. But when it comes to an economic issue, all their anchors come out and say the same exact thing.
Right.
It's good cop, bad cop. So now, look, the next step is they're gonna go to the House. And in the House, you think you're going to have any real debates?
No, it's all theater.
Please turn off your mainstream media. They're going to pretend to have debates, and the media is going to pretend that it's real. It's so annoying. Here, I will tell you ahead of time, an absolute guarantee that this bill passes. There's no drama. All of it is totally, utterly fake. There's a 0% chance it doesn't pass. And you want to know why? Because it has giant tax cuts for the rich and huge subsidies for corporations.
So let me get to some more of those details and then save some of that heat for Senator Lisa Murkowski, Cenk. Because Lisa Murkowski was talking a big game about how she's going to vote no on the bill. She ultimately voted yes after she got some nice pork for her state. So we're gonna get to her in just a second. But first, let me just address the tax cuts as a part of this bill. So the bill contains temporary tax breaks when it comes to tips and overtime. So it's interesting because what this bill does is it makes Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent. The tax cuts that will not be permanent, of course, are tax cuts that benefit workers. So the deductions are capped at $25,000 for tips. So anyone making tips up to $25,000 will not be taxed, and $12,500 for overtime, and decrease for individuals making more than $150,000 a year. So they're kind of means testing this tax break for workers. And on top of that, these tax breaks will expire by the end of 2028. The other tax breaks, again, that disproportionately benefit the rich, the tax breaks for corporations that passed in 2017, those are all permanent. When it comes to workers, not permanent and also means tested, which is an interesting way that they're prioritizing who benefits the most from this bill.
So let me just jump in for one quick second. So I often criticize mainstream media. In that case, is anyone in right-wing media telling their voters that the tips and overtime is a trick and that it's only temporary, but the tax cuts for the rich are permanent? My guess is that zero right-wing media shows are saying that, zero.
The bill also gives seniors a deduction for Social Security benefits. Social Security benefits are taxed, so there is a bit of a break here, although those tax breaks also expire in 2028. And the bill, again, permanently extends the 2017 tax cuts from Trump's original legislation. So when you put all of those tax policies together, according to analysis by the Urban Brookings Tax Policy Center, a person making $217,000 or more annually would receive about a $12,500 tax cut on average under the Senate version of this bill. But a person making $35,000 or less would see only about $150 average tax cut. So again, it's clear who this benefits the most, and it's not ordinary working class Americans.
The last I saw, Anna, the top 1% are getting over a $62,000 tax break every single year.
I mean, as they should. How else would they trickle on us, Cenk?
Yeah, I mean, they got to save up for the trickling. So $62,000 a year extra for the richest people in the country because they're worried about the debt? Do you see what a joke Republican politicians are? They're 100% lying, and all of the media goes along as if it isn't a lie.
So let's get to Lisa Murkowski because this is amazing. So Lisa Murkowski is one of the so-called moderate Republican senators who was not planning to vote in favor of this bill, according to everything she was saying publicly. Well, she caved. She ended up voting yes, and apparently there was quite a bit of pork included in the bill specifically for her state of Alaska. And look, on one hand, she's elected to represent the people of Alaska, so she should fight to see what she could get on behalf of her constituents. However, obviously this bill is disastrous, and an hour ago, literally an hour before we came on air, she tweeted about how she thinks this is an awful process, it's an awful bill. But nonetheless, the reason why she voted yes is because she got all sorts of cookies, including a provision that lets certain Alaskan whaling captains deduct more of their expenses to save on taxes.
Oh, thank God that America got that pork for her donor class.
For whaling, yeah. Now there's a provision that would also increase federal Medicaid funding for the state with the highest separate poverty guideline, which just so happens to be Alaska. Several carve-outs in the work requirements for food stamps, because there are in fact cuts to food stamps and Medicaid in this bill, and an exemption for the new SNAP cost sharing requirement, which would force states to shoulder some of the cost for SNAP if their reported error rate is too high. So she got some goodies in there that she really wanted, and that's why she ended up voting yes on this legislation.
So look, they're radical corporatists. They give away all of our money to corporations. You know, we complain so much about our money getting given away to Israel for the war crimes, etc. But a lot more of our money constantly taken out of our checks to give corporate subsidies to whoever is donating to these politicians, whether they're whalers or Oilers or Canucks or whoever they might be, okay? So all you gotta do is bribe a politician. So I'm so tired of Murkowski being called a moderate. And mainstream media does that to make radical corporatists look like centrists. Oh, everybody agrees with Murkowski that we should cut 12 million people off of Medicaid, and if their kids get cancer, they should die. And 70,000 people at least a year are going to die according to estimates because they don't have health insurance because of this bill. 70,000 dead Americans. But hey, the super rich needed another $62,000 a year. And you tell me Murkowski's a moderate? No, she's not. She's a radical, corrupt corporatist. Like they all are. They all are. Come on, man.
So we currently, without this bill, have $37 trillion in debt. Last year, we spent $1 trillion servicing our debt. We are now spending more on servicing our debt than we do on defense spending. And that's concerning. So Jake, explain to me when things really blow up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried it's going to be soon. So look, guys, we've said this. You know us. We're principled, no matter which administration or which party's in. And so there's both people on the left and on the right who say that deficits don't matter, right? There's Stephanie Kelton on the left, respected, wonderful person, intellectual, etc., on part of Bernie's team, but I don't agree. I think that does. I know the debt matters. I know it matters.
It's called modern monetary theory, and I agree with Cenk that it doesn't make much sense.
Okay, so we can have a fun debate over that, right? But Dick Cheney agrees. He says the debt doesn't matter. He famously said that to George W. Bush. And so the Republicans drive me crazy, and the media drives me crazy because they go along with the theater. They pretend the debt matters, and then they pile on top of it and pile on top of it. Trump added a record 8.4 trillion to the debt when he was in his first term in only 4 years. And how? Why? Because he did a massive tax cut for the rich and for corporations. And it goes on and on and on. So at the end of the day, when you have enough debt, it starts to devalue your currency. So it's going to devalue the dollar. But the fact that the dollar is the main currency used worldwide has enormous positive effects for us. So if they switch away from the dollar, it'll have enormous negative effects. And the more we pile up debt, the lower our credit rating goes. And when our credit rating drops, our interest rates go up.
Exactly.
Which means that we then will have even more debt to pay back the earlier debt. And then you get into a death spiral, in a literal debt spiral. So I don't think that the extremes on either side are right. I think the debt definitely matters. And unfortunately, our corrupt politicians are never, ever, ever, ever gonna do anything about it because they both love giving away everything to the donors and they take it from you. And this is before the debt explodes on your head. Because once it explodes and the economy starts heading down, they're gonna say, well, there was nothing we could do. No, the oil company executives, they already have the money. You can't take that away from them. That's socialism, right? And they say you won't be able to touch anyone who already robbed you. and they're gonna take that money and they're gonna move it offshore, they're gonna do all these things, and then they're gonna say, hey America, now you owe, it used to be 37, 47, 57 trillion dollars. Average American, now you have to pay for that.
And I should note, Moody's did lower the US credit rating fairly recently, and it's because of the fact that we just keep piling on more and more debt. It's become unmanageable, and this bill is not gonna help, that's for sure. All right, we gotta take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about something good that happened in the Senate version of the bill, if you could believe it, but it has further fan the flames of this feud that Elon Musk is having with Donald Trump. We'll tell you what that provision is. We'll check in on that feud and more when we come back. Don't miss it.
Let's see how Earth responds to that.
All right, guys, let's start with members at TYT.com. Doodle Dragon Emron says, Toot Tuesday with TYT. Love you, TYT. It's already a high blood pressure day. Glad to pop off with all of you. Toot. Thank you, brother. So check out Emron's designs, the vote design and the ceasefire design on shoptyt.com. By the way, it is Tuesday, and yes, finally Operation Joy is back. And today, I'm gonna ask you to do an awkward but really rewarding exercise with me in the bonus episode. So you have that awkwardness to look forward to. But we will literally, hopefully, I'm pretty confident. Well, we'll let you guys give yourself a little bit of joy today, okay? So that's in the bonus episode for the members. Hit the join button below or tyt.com. To join us on that. By the way, Operation Hope is tomorrow. That's after the bonus episode. Make sure you're signing up at tyt.com/hope. You can participate, come up with ideas, help, bring hope to people, and ask questions as well. So that's at 8:30 Eastern tomorrow with me on Operation Hope. All right, so tyt.com/hope on that one. Eclectic writes in, hi TYT fam, just got back in the US after a long but fun 3-week vacation. Did anything big happen in the news while I was gone? Oh,
you went on
nothing.
a 3-week vacation, Cenk. I'm gonna go on a 3-week vacation.
No,
yes.
I'm sorry.
No, next year I'm definitely gonna do that.
Okay, anyways. Eclectic, good to have you back, brother. Sexy Speed Racer says, happy Canada Day to all of our friends and neighbors in the greatest country in North America.
What's that about?
I don't know what Canada Day is, but God bless you wonderful Canadians, okay? Art Guy says, Cenk is surprisingly chirpy and optimistic in the face of today's news, and I'm here for it. Yeah, no problem. Guys, it's not like I'm gonna get depressed today because the Senate passed that bill that I knew for a fact the Senate was gonna pass the minute Donald Trump got elected. Like it was never in doubt, never 1% in doubt, right? That's why we fought so hard against Trump, because some things are written in stone once he wins, including this and all the authoritarian disasters. Boomer Dragon Cat says, really surprised Elon has come back for more. Hope he exposes some good dirt on Trumpy. Me too. He said, that he's trying not to go further, but he might have to soon. And I was like, oh, tell us more, Elon. I like it when they fight because they accidentally reveal each other's, not accidentally, they reveal each other's secrets, the ones they had been keeping all along. They both know that they're both dirty, but now they're airing that dirty laundry.
My favorite thing in the world is seeing all these right wingers on X arguing that it's the libs doing a psyop that led to their conflict.
Oh, sure.
I love, you guys have too much faith in the libs, okay? I'm sorry.
Like we could pull that off. That would be amazing. Anyway, Knuckle Dragon says, both parties adopted and support trickle-down economics. Money is represented in DC, not the voters. Obviously 100% true. Mongoose Dragon says, Josh Hawley ran 3 weeks of ads stating that he was going to save Medicaid. He's my senator. Lucky effing me. See, that's Josh Hawley's a giant liar. He takes the money and then he uses it for ads where he lies about saving Medicaid, and then he stabs Medicaid in the back and twists the knife and goes, I already got the marketing from it. Yeah, Josh, we see you. And yeah, anyways, Churchy Delanosis with an excellent point. The tips expire at the end of 2028, just in time for the Republicans to campaign on extending them or risk losing them if the Dems win in 2028. Good point.
fully expecting our daily proctology exam.
Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. And Dawn Whitehead, thank you for gifting a Young Turks membership. Appreciate you. Casper.
Well, time to check in on the frenemies, that otherwise known as Musk and Donald Trump. Let's get into it.
We might have to put Doge on Elon. You know what Doge is? Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible? He gets a lot of subsidies, Peter. But Elon's very upset that the EV mandate is going to be terminated. And you know what? When you look at it, not everybody wants an electric car.
Before we get into the substance of this story, I just have to comment on the fact that Donald Trump's hats remind me of cell phones for elderly people, right? The text just keeps getting bigger and bigger as they get older and older. Now, with that out of the way, Donald Trump is threatening to sic Doge on the man who cooked up the faux government agency in the first place, Elon Musk, especially as the rift between the Tesla CEO and the president heats up, with Trump even threatening to deport Elon. Deport him, wow. So as we explained on the show last week and this week, Musk is extremely salty over the fact that the big beautiful bill, according to him, allegedly, according to him, is adding a lot to the federal debt. It does add a lot to the federal debt to the tune of $3.3 trillion, but I don't know if that's really what Elon Musk is upset about. It also removes subsidies for renewable energy. I know he's salty about that. And it even adds a new tax on green energy companies, which means that that new tax is going to impact Tesla. Now, we're also learning that the Senate version of the big beautiful bill removes a provision that Silicon Valley really wanted: a 10-year moratorium on state laws that would regulate artificial intelligence. They got rid of that. So that means that states, if the bill passes in its current form, would be free to regulate AI. Now, as you can imagine, Musk is not a fan of these provisions and has been complaining about it on social media. He doesn't complain about the lack of subsidies for renewables. He pretends like he's really concerned about how this bill adds to the national debt. But in response, Trump posted on Truth Social that Elon may get more subsidy than any human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa. No more rocket launches, satellites, or electric car production, and our country would save a fortune. Perhaps we should have Doge take a good hard look at this. Big money to be saved. Now, Trump is definitely correct that Elon Musk and his businesses have received quite a lot of money in subsidies. So Musk and his businesses have received at least $38 billion in government contracts, loans, subsidies, and tax credits, often at critical moments for his businesses. And Musk has responded on Truth Social simply by saying, "I am literally saying cut it all now." Cenk, do you believe him?
No, of course not. Okay. So they're both making good points about how wrong the other guy is, but it's interesting that they're doing it now. When they were getting along, Trump wasn't talking about Elon Musk's $38 billion in contracts, loans, subsidies, etc. There was, Elon's a hero and he's cutting. Meanwhile, Trump knows, because now you know it for a fact because he said it, all along, he knew that Elon was actually getting $38 billion and not cutting a dime of it.
Right.
And he was good with it because Elon had given him money, right? Now, I'll give Trump credit for cutting the electric vehicle subsidies in an ironic kind of way. I'm not sure that they should be cut, but at least he cut a subsidy that was going to a donor. So that's the one piece of credit there for Trump's side, fairest show in America. But now back to Elon. Elon says, I'm saying cut it all, cut the oil and gas. Totally right about that, and Trump is hiding $17 billion in oil and gas subsidies that we give out every single year. But Elon, you knew that when you were running Doge. How come you never talked about the $17 billion in oil and gas subsidies earlier? How come you didn't cut it earlier under Doge? Because the reality, guys, is this is all a shell game being played on you. The people who have power and money, they're all divvying up the spoils. They're gonna charge you, they're gonna take the money, and then they're gonna split it up among themselves with subsidies and tax credits and giveaways. And almost none of it will go to you. It'll go to people like Elon and others. And then the big fight is over, is Elon gonna get more than ExxonMobil? Or is ExxonMobil gonna get more than Elon?
Yeah, we're talking about the most profitable corporations and the richest people in this country fighting over how much more they can rape and pillage the US taxpayer. And in the meantime, our lawmakers are nickel and diming the American people and specifically targeting funding that helps provide health insurance to the poorest among us. That is the current state of our Congress right now. That's how pathetic Congress is. That's how corrupt our political system is. Now, back to this feud. Trump is now threatening to denaturalize Elon Musk and deport him. Take a look at that.
Come on.
I don't know. I mean, we'll have to take a look. We might have to put Doge on Elon. You know what Doge is? Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible?
Okay, so to be fair to Trump, a reporter asked, do you plan on deporting Elon Musk? And he's like, I don't know, we gotta look into it. So he's open to it, although, look, there are a lot of threats about denaturalizing all sorts of people that the administration doesn't like. And do we really wanna live in a world like that? Do we wanna live in a country like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, Trump is totally unhinged. This is not normal, guys. It's not normal to say, hey, I'm going to deport a US citizen who also happens to be the richest guy in the country and in the world. Like
for disagreeing with me.
For disagreeing, who cares that he disagrees? Oh, he doesn't like my budget bill, so I'm gonna just violate the law egregiously and make every naturalized citizen nervous that if you don't agree with Donald Trump or kiss his ass, he's gonna try to take away your US citizenship and deport you. What a lunatic thing to say. Also, of course, talking about, and other right wingers, but Trump is pushing it, potentially arresting Zohran Mamdani.
For what?
For what? It doesn't matter for disagreeing with Trump, okay? Also arresting the people at CNN for running a story about a different app. We'll do that later in the show. And also talking about arresting the former Homeland Security Chief, Mayorkas, under Biden. All of that was just in the last 2 days.
Guys,
okay, unhinged, totally unhinged.
Totally unhinged.
Yeah, and if you're a right winger and you think that's normal, that's not within a billion miles of normal.
It's not just about the fact that it's abnormal, which it is. It's embarrassing, okay? You can't pretend as though the president that you support is this big alpha dog, this big alpha male, when he's constantly threatening to imprison or deport anyone who disagrees with him even a little bit.
Yeah, why don't you grow up a little bit, Trump? Why don't you man up a little bit? Every time somebody tweaks him, he's like, I'm gonna arrest him, I'm gonna deport him. All right, you sound like a bitch.
No, he does sound like a bitch.
Like everything, every slightest little criticism. Oh yeah, let's rip up the Constitution and arrest my critics, said the guy who ran on freedom of speech.
I know.
Come on. Come on, if that's not embarrassing, what is? And he's getting these senior moments too, where he's like, you know what Doge is? Yeah, brother, we all know what Doge is, okay? And we can see the letters on your hat. I got it, they're giant, I got it.
Okay, so in response to Trump, threatening to deport him and mentioning all the subsidies that Elon Musk's companies receive, Musk simply replied with this. So tempting to escalate this, so tempting.
Then do it, brother.
But I will refrain for now.
For now. Yeah, they're gonna escalate like crazy.
Listen, we will allow it.
Yeah. So look, guys, first of all, we got a website called where'sOurcut.com. If we're gonna keep giving money to Elon Musk, we should get equity. Why are we investing into his companies and not getting equity as the taxpayers? Which, by the way, we could do for almost all these corporations who are all robbing us. They're literally taking money out of our pocket and giving it to these executives. It's sickening, okay? So now, the other thing is we're doing a poll, and I think this is one of the hardest questions we've asked. I don't know which way I'm gonna go on this. Who's gonna win the long war? Donald Trump or Elon Musk? It's on the live chat, it's also on tyt.com. So right now, Trump's got the lead, and both in the poll and in real life. There was this, for a minute, there was like, hey, is MAGA gonna go with Trump or Musk? And then MAGA went with Trump, which is not surprising. And I'm curious where all the Elon stands are. Remember all the guys who loved Elon?
They used to be Democrat. Well, they are Democrats, and they no longer support him because of all the shenanigans.
No. I mean like the guys who loved Doge. The guy once he flipped to being a Republican. The MAGA guys that loved Elon, they seem to have melted away into the woods or into X. But anyways, Trump is only president for another 3 years or so, you hope, two. And Elon is still gonna be the richest guy or one of the richest guys. And he says he's gonna keep spending more and more money into politics.
Yeah, in fact, he was a lot more threatening toward Trump yesterday. And also anyone who votes in favor of the so-called big beautiful bill. He had posted on X, it is obvious with the insane spending of this bill, which increases the debt ceiling by a record $5 trillion, that we live in a one-party country, the Porky Pig Party. Time for a new political party that actually cares about the people. Elon, listen, I'm gonna answer the poll, okay? I don't know whether it's gonna be Trump or Elon Musk who wins the so-called long war. What I do know is that the American people lose no matter what. Okay, Elon Musk doesn't care about the people. He doesn't. Okay, this notion that he's concerned about the debt is hilarious to me because he wasn't whining about the debt at all when it came to subsidies that he was enjoying.
Yeah, I mean, look,
$38 billion in subsidies and all sorts of government contracts and grants.
Yeah, and guys, he didn't bring up the oil and gas subsidies back when he was in charge of Doge. He didn't bring up the electric vehicle subsidies. The one thing Trump is right about is that Musk is not really mad about the deficit. He didn't mention the deficit when he thought he was gonna get the electric vehicle subsidies, but now that the subsidies for him are taken out, all of a sudden he discovered that there was a huge deficit. Okay, so then you want us to take out the tax cuts for the rich? No, I didn't think so, right? So the only thing I disagree with you on, Anna, is you said no, like the country's not gonna win out of this, right? No, if Elon was in charge, they wouldn't win. If Trump's in charge, they're not winning. But if Elon and Trump fight, and later they split the vote, then the country could get something very positive out of it.
No, we always lose. You're endlessly optimistic. I'm done. I allowed myself to have maybe a little tiny sliver of hope, thinking that there's a portion of the Trump base that's actually serious about changing this system to benefit the American people. Everyone's full of crap. No one cares about anything but themselves. No. Let's keep it real, Cenk.
But I am gonna keep it real with a segment that we did yesterday. So remember, again, now I'm telling you, Trump voters are not all the same. They're not all MAGA. We're trying to peel off the independents and remember the, hold on. You remember the polling yesterday? It's at this bill's at minus 26.
I don't care about the polling.
So, okay, no, you gotta
Everyone talks a big talk. Everyone talks a big game when it comes to the polls, or oh no, I'm gonna put my foot down and this is what I believe. But when push comes to shove, everyone caves and does exactly what we predict they're gonna do.
But in terms of the American people, forget the politicians. Of course, that's true about the politicians. They're all crooks. We've said that 100 times, in fact, thousands of times throughout all these years. No, I'm talking about the voters. Those independent voters do flip-flop. They did vote for Obama.
Independent voters
they did vote for Trump.
Yes.
They are flipping and flopping.
They are flipping and flopping.
And they do care. So like and they are paying some degree of attention because the Democratic Party lost young African Americans slightly, but it made a difference. Lost Latinos big time. Lost a big chunk of younger voters. Why? Because they were paying attention and they thought the Democrats didn't deliver, right? So now, and they made the mistake of thinking, well, maybe Trump will deliver. He's not a normal politician, right? But it turns out he's abnormal, as we knew, abnormal in the wrong ways, right? Oh, I'm gonna arrest anyone who criticizes me, blah, right? But in terms of tax cuts for the rich and giant deficits, he's the most normal politician you've ever seen. So those independent voters are not going to get pissed again, and they're gonna wanna vote for someone else. And at that point, that's why I started Rebellion PAC. Because at that point, you have to give them a real choice, a real option. Not a fake corporate Democrat who's just gonna disappoint them again, but a populist economic message that Bernie has that's gonna work, rebellionpac.com. So otherwise, yeah, we're just gonna bounce back and forth between good cop, bad cop, good cop, bad cop. Everybody's disappointed after every election. They all rob us, they all lie to us. You've got to break that cycle, go populist left.
I think we should all stop paying our taxes.
No, don't do that.
Yeah.
You'll get in a lot
why
of
can't
trouble.
we have an actual Tea Party?
The Tea Party was against corporations.
No taxation without representation. I'm serious though. I'm sick of my taxes going to garbage.
No, I got you, and it's so frustrating. I mean, guys, we've been over this a million times. Every day you go into work, you work your ass off. They give you a check at the end of the week or whatever, and you look at it, and the money they took away from you. You could look at that number. That's going to Israel because of AIPAC. It's 17 billion in oil subsidies, even more than Israel. Okay, because ExxonMobil, et cetera, gave contracts, gave donations. It's going to Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all these corporations. They're literally taking money out of your pocket because all of our politicians are crooks.
Yep.
But you got to have the courage to call out your own side. Trump won partly because he called out the Republicans. He didn't mean it, right? He's a fake populist. And look, he did the same exact thing that every Republican president does, which is rob the poor and the middle class to pay the rich, right? But at least he was savvy enough to be a fake populist. Imagine if we gave him a real populist. And you're never gonna win without a real populist, never. These corporate goons are gonna good cop, bad cop you for the rest of your life.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the new alliance between Thomas Massie and Elon Musk. What does this mean for the chances of Massie getting reelected? And what are the polls saying? The polls are actually really shocking and depressing. So come right back, I'll share them with you.
Oh my God, you need Greg Louganis to get that far underwater.
All right, guys, back to TYT viewers and members. Let's go to TYT.com again. JZ Crowley says, I will personally be seriously harmed by BBB. The loss of the enhanced healthcare tax credit will make insurance on the exchanges unaffordable, and the changes to the terms to my student loans will likely undercut the possibility of ever escaping poverty or having my student debt discharged. So that is the real effects on real people. And you should hate the Republicans for what they did to you. Okay, and so I'm talking about the politicians, and those sons of bitches took money out of your pocket, and all to give another $62,000 a year to the top 1%. So you have every right to be furious. And when's the last time Democrats protected you? When's the last time the Democrats blocked one of these enormous giveaways to the rich? My recollection is never, never. It's so fake. 36 Chambers Dragon says, the debt doesn't mean crap to the Republicans until the very first day the Democrats take the White House. Then it's the new nuclear threat to everyone. 100%. Guys, that's why I get so frustrated with the media. Because the media, like children, or the minute a Democrat wins, they're like, oh my God, the debt is so important. The debt. Oh, the Republicans care so much about the debt. Hey, idiots. Did you not see all the Republican administrations pile on debt after debt after debt? Why don't you be honest with your audience for once and say, I'll tell you whose fault it is. It's the Republicans' fault. Look, nobody criticizes Democrats more than we do. And I'm telling you, it's the Republicans' fault. There's no question about it. It's a sheer matter of fact. It's a fact. They add more to the debt than Democrats do, and by a lot. And then pretend they care about the debt. I'm so exhausted from the same boring play we all go to. And all the cable news anchors and the stupid New York Times reporters, oh, I see the Republicans care. So write down, Republicans care about debt, Republicans care about debt, Republicans are the best on debt. But why are you lying for them? What a weird thing to do. All right, Imploded Brainy says, wow, Medicaid cuts just in time for me to have to take care of my 77-year-old mother who had spent most of May in the hospital and has dementia. USA, tell me again, what is a citizen's return on investment for living in this blank hole? And am I a DAR member? LOL, what an effing joke.
So look, since I have experience with this with a mom who's in the age to be able to get Medicare, your mom should qualify for Medicare. And I'm really, really hoping that you guys get the help that you need. But yeah, I mean, look, overall, cutting $1 trillion from Medicaid is just so utterly disgusting, especially when you're doing it specifically to give more cookies to the rich.
Yep. Danny Sam says, Anna's punchy today. I will allow it. Yes. Okay. Cabbage says 38 billion is just a bad day on the market for Elon. Some truth to that.
That's so depressing.
Boomer Dragon Cat says, my Cuban husband is scared to death. They are going to denaturalize him. He's been in the US since age 12, since 1969. It doesn't matter if it's unlikely, it's happening. You can't help but worry. No, the denaturalization is for people like me. It's for people that are annoyed Donald Trump. They're not gonna find your husband on a ranch somewhere. They'll find your, like, they could round him, ICE could accidentally round him up. That actually literally happens. So that's another disaster. All right, we'll be back. Back on TYT, Jen Canana with you guys. More news.
Well, as we all know, Donald Trump is threatening to primary Thomas Massie, a libertarian congressman. And the big question is, will this plot work? Let's get into the details. Congressman Thomas Massie, a libertarian, and Elon Musk are now joining forces in their feud against President Donald Trump and his massive tax cut and spending bill, otherwise known as the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Now, yesterday, Elon Musk pledged to support Massie, who also has a big problem with the spending that's associated with the Big Beautiful Bill. Both men say they're worried about how much the bill adds to the national debt, and Musk suggested that he would donate to Massie's re-election campaign in order to help him beat a Trump-endorsed primary challenger. Now, here's how Massie responded. He says, "You're too kind, but thank you. A large part of my job is to keep government from screwing things up for the engineers and entrepreneurs who do make this world a better place. I don't think enough people appreciate the contributions you and your team have made to civilization." I like Thomas Massie, even though I disagree with him on probably most policies. And the reason why I like him is because he is principled. He actually seems to be the only lawmaker who is concerned about the national debt. And you don't see principled politicians in Congress, so that's why I like him. I don't know how I feel about this alliance because I don't see Elon Musk as a genuine person, and I don't want him to like muck up Massie, if you know what I mean.
I do. So look, I don't particularly care where Massie gets his money, meaning like, I'm not like, yay, Musk is gonna give him money, or he doesn't have money, whatever. Do I want him to win over a Trump-backed ass-kissing Republican? Of course, on honesty alone.
Exactly.
Like even if the Trump ass kisser that's gonna run against them, we should have a good acronym for that, TAC, Trump ass kisser, right? So even if the TAC agrees with us on policies more than Massie does, I still rather have Massie because Massie's at least honest, and not corrupt, right? And you know that he's gonna vote on principle and he's gonna speak out. And he's not gonna be a little bitch.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, he's
brave. And that's a huge, huge part of it.
That's the thing that, you know what? You just helped crystallize what it is about Massie that kind of puts him in top tier mode for me, right? It's the fact that he is willing to say out loud what he knows is going to draw the ire of members of his own party, and more importantly, Donald Trump. That fearlessness really speaks to me, and I always appreciate that. Now, Massie also posted a lengthy statement on X saying that Elon's purchase of Twitter and cultivation of the X platform for free speech has already helped my cause immensely. It's allowed me to bypass conventional media to refute the lies of both political parties and to provide transparency about how Congress works and what's actually inside of the bills we vote on. Exposing the worst parts of the Big Beautiful Bill and reasserting congressional war powers has recently earned me the ire of the swamp and a fight for my reelection. But my reelection isn't really about either of those issues specifically. It's a referendum on whether members of Congress can think and act independently based on what's best for the country, or whether all members of Congress must be reduced to rubber stamps for their respective political parties and swampy special interests. So look, Trump hasn't weighed in on the new alliance between Thomas Massie and Elon Musk yet. I'm sure he will eventually, but as we speak, he hasn't yet. But the president has continued attacking Massie today, writing that new poll, anybody I endorse beats Thomas Massie of Kentucky by 25 points. Get ready, Massie is a very bad guy. Massie is not a very bad guy. You are a very bad guy, and you can't handle anyone disagreeing with you on anything. I mean, the threats toward anyone who slightly disagrees with Trump, insane. So, by the way, our research did not turn up that exact 25-point number that was referenced by Trump, but there was a poll conducted by Kaplan Strategies, which surveyed approximately, big sample size here, 370 likely Republican primary voters in Massie's district. And here's what they found in this one poll. So currently Massie faces a declared challenger, registered nurse Nicole Lee Ethington, who leads him in a head-to-head matchup 31% to 19%, with a majority of voters still undecided. Massie's favorability is also alarmingly low among the Republican base. So 23% view him favorably, 62% view him unfavorably. Donald Trump enjoys 89% favorability among the same group.
I don't believe that poll at all.
Now, 72% say they are less likely to vote for Thomas Massie because of his opposition to Trump's tax cuts and budget. 58% are less likely to support him after learning he voted against Trump's Israel policy.
No, this poll is total garbage.
So the poll, okay, let me just give you some more. And then we have one other poll that we can kind of, judge this one up against, okay? But this Kaplan poll also revealed that Massie's district thinks the following about foreign policy. So only 6% support staying out of the Iran-Israel conflict, 52% favor. By the way, again, this is a poll of like 360 people in Kentucky, in his specific district in Kentucky. 52% favor targeted action against Iran's nuclear program, 31% support active US involvement to pursue regime change in Iran.
No, this is total junk poll.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So here's how Massie responded to the poll. You're gonna love this. Perhaps some of you have seen a fake poll of my race floating around on the internet. The pollster looks like a homeless person broadcasting from a stairwell in a crack house. He includes a photo of said pollster. They just interviewed him on Newsmax. I wonder what the host was thinking during the interview. Look, I will admit that is not an appealing shot or angle for the pollster. The lighting is also terrible. Nonetheless, Harry Enton reported on some relevant data when it comes to Trump's primary endorsements.
So the Enton data is real. So let me just dismiss the total junk poll. This is done by one of the apparatchiks on Trump's side, and it's so hilariously driven by special interests. That's why the reason why I say it's junk is it doesn't match any of the other polling I've seen, and it's off by a lot. Okay, and Massie has survived other challenges easily. So this is a different ball game, and overall MAGA supports Trump over Massie, but his district has been super loyal to him. So I don't know which way it's gonna go. I'd bet on Massie to win that election, but I'm not like saying, oh, I'm sure Massie's gonna win. But this poll that has him only at 19% approval, no effing, that's not even close, right? But the one that's hilarious and is a dead giveaway is only 6% of the people in that very conservative district in Kentucky support staying out of the Iran-Israel conflict. 94% want to get right in the middle of it and put boots on the ground in Iran.
Who knows, maybe.
Oh, sure, come on.
Maybe that one district in Kentucky is like full of neocons.
Yeah, all the neocons moved to Thomas Massie's district.
Yeah.
No, this is a joke. So, but the next poll is real and disconcerting.
So let's go to Harry Enton, who specifically addresses Trump-endorsed primary challengers.
We actually have the data to show that the Republican base is
with Donald Trump. The Times Trump endorsees won the GOP primary for governor and congressional races. Look at this. 2024, 96%. 2022, 95%. 2020, 98%. The bottom line is this. 95% plus of the time, the Trump endorsed candidate wins in GOP primaries. And even in the cases where Donald Trump endorses a challenger to an incumbent, the majority of the time, that challenger wins. So Donald Trump is a winner in Republican primaries. You go against Donald Trump, to quote the movie Good Burger, you go in the grinder.
I would like to look into the methodology of that data, how they gather that data. Because 2022, there were a ton of people that Trump endorsed that didn't make it.
Yeah, no, it's misleading. So it's true overall. The number is not, I don't think the number is wrong.
Carrie Lake, Herschel Walker, Dr. Oz.
No. But why it's misleading is Trump endorses like the overwhelming majority of incumbents and they all win. So it pumps up his numbers, right? And in fact, sometimes right-wingers will get mad at Trump. They're like, why are you endorsing this total uniparty establishment neocon Republican? Because Trump wants that number to be big, so he just does blanket endorsements. If you noticed, Harry Enten said there at the end, you might have missed it. He said, when Trump backs a challenger to an incumbent, he still wins a majority of the time.
Okay, got it.
Okay, not 95% of the time, barely a majority. And a lot of times he's lost spectacularly with Herschel Walker, Carrie Lake, and the lunatic in Pennsylvania, and the list goes on and on. So that's why it's a misleading number. But overall, I see why, of course, people are concerned. So, and they got to make that calculation. And Massey's got a set on him to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to bend to a Democrat, and I'm not going to bend to a Republican president.
And I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Again, it's someone who's actually guided by his principles, his values, even if I disagree. And that's the kind of country I want to live in, where you have good faith actors who actually have values, and aren't easily corrupted.
We need a lot more of that in the Democratic Party.
Yes.
To say why aren't you introducing the public option? Why aren't we voting on paid family leave? Why did you take $15 minimum wage out? Instead, all we had in the Democrats is, Joe Biden, trust Biden, trust Biden. Well, that was a disaster. It ran us straight into an iceberg. I wish 1,000 times more Democrats had challenged Biden. By the way, this ass kissery happens on both sides. That's why like Dean Phillips and Thomas Massey are such, like odd characters from Washington's perspective, right? Massey challenged the Republican president, as you're seeing here. Dean Phillips obviously challenged Joe Biden in the primaries in the last time around, and they both got the same reaction from their sides. I've seen MAGA say to Massey like, oh, he's kind of an oddball. He votes no on everything. Well, you guys used to love that. But now that he votes no on Trump's bill, they're like, no, you have to kiss daddy's ass. And on the Democratic side, Dean Phillips, how dare you challenge Joe Biden, who's the youngest person to ever live, and who's the most dynamic, greatest Democratic president ever. Bad, Dean Phillips, you're bad, terrible, disloyal, right?
Yeah.
No, those are the people that ruin the party, because you need internal criticism to make the party better. Look at what we say on the left about America. Because we criticize America doesn't mean we hate America. It means we want America to be better, right? So the same thing goes for your party, whether you're Republican or Democrat. You don't criticize the Democratic Party because you hate it. You criticize them because you love it and you want to make it better, right? Love it is a bit strong, okay? But you want to make the party better. And that's how, if you just go, oh, okay, let's just do nothing, like James Carville's saying. Well, that's a recipe for disaster, and that's why they're sitting at 26%. And eventually, look, the Republicans.
Look, you're being, look.
Yeah.
I think you're being super unfair to Democratic leadership. In fact, I've been unfair because I was under the assumption that they weren't fighting back against the so-called big beautiful bill. But Ken Klippenstein, one of the best journalists in the country, really did correct the record here.
Oh, okay.
So Senator Chuck Schumer, Senate Minority Leader, did do something really important today.
I hope it's a strongly worded letter.
Even more important than that, he rebranded the bill. He tweeted today, I just forced Republicans to delete their ridiculous bill name. It's no longer named the One Big Beautiful Bill. Nothing about this bill is beautiful. It's a betrayal to American families and it's undeserving of such a stupid name. Thank you, Senator Schumer. Thank you.
So that's how he stopped the bill. Oh no, the bill went through.
He just renamed it.
Yeah, okay. In his mind, he renamed it.
It's actually what Democrats are really good at. They love renaming things and rebranding things without actually doing anything about the underlying issue. You know, don't call it homelessness, call it unhoused, but don't actually address the issue.
Yeah.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we've got a lot more to get into, including Israeli settlers now attacking IDF soldiers. Let them fight? We're gonna ask, you decide. We'll be right back.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, the defense contractors, the Wall Street, or the big pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
Indisputable, exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
You're smoking some of the best dope God ever put breath in. You're Willie Nelson High.
And I love white people.
anti-Semitism.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Dan Kalajian. Thanks for joining us, Dan. Appreciate it. You hit that beautiful, big, beautiful button.
Yeah, Barev Danjan.
All right. Or you can join through tyt.com/join, where you're going to get a couple of months off if you do annual membership. Fun for everybody.
Is there a little bit of an Armenian invasion here at the Young Turks?
I love it. Okay. More. Welcome, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, let's take a little trip over to the Middle East, as we've been doing a lot over the last 2 years.
Palestinians in Kafr Malik hold funerals for 3 of their own on Thursday, a day after Jewish settlers attacked the West Bank village in their dozens as the residents tried to defend themselves. As the cleanup continued, they say they were taken by surprise.
No fewer than 70 to 80 settlers took part. They entered the area and scattered among most of the houses within 5 minutes. At first, they started with the car, broke the windows, and then burned it. A settler came to the house here. The window shutter was open. He broke the glass and threw a firebomb. There was a 1-month-old baby girl sleeping in the bed.
Last week, more than 100 Israeli settlers launched a violent attack on Palestinians in the West Bank, in the town of Kafr Malik, setting property on fire and even shooting at Palestinians who tried to stop them from doing so. Now, right-wing Israeli violence in the West Bank has gone so far that they have even begun attacking Israeli security forces in the area. And before we get to all the details about that unbelievable twist, we do have to start with the settlers' horrific attack on this town, where at least 7 illegal settler outposts have gone up in recent months. And I just want to remind you all that the Israeli government even announced some months ago, I think it was last month, that they intend on building 22 new illegal settlements in the West Bank. So we shouldn't be surprised by any of this. This was already pre-announced. This is a plan that's been in the works. They're going to annex the entirety of the West Bank. That's what they plan to do.
That's Miriam Adelson's plan. She's the one that bribed Donald Trump. Her family's bribed him, giving campaign contributions of $337 million. So That's how bribery works in America. I'm gonna go off on the settlers in a second, who are pretty much the worst people on earth.
They are.
Okay,
yes. So let's get to some of these details. So dozens of Israelis descended on this village near Ramallah by foot and in vehicles. The attackers hurled Molotov cocktails and set homes and cars on fire. They allegedly tried to break into people's homes. I don't even want to say allegedly, because there's plenty, there's video evidence of it, right? A firebomb was thrown into a bedroom where a newborn was being put to sleep. Luckily, the mom and baby survived that attack. And soon after the attack began, Israeli forces arrived and opened fire at Palestinians instead of going after the rioters, the settlers. They accused villagers of shooting at them, which no witnesses corroborated. Very likely because it's untrue. And the soldiers killed 3 people, according to the Palestinians. The Palestinian Health Ministry. A 35-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 15-year-old. Now remember, we're talking about the West Bank. We're not talking about Gaza here. So the West Bank was not governed by Hamas. So you can't argue that Hamas is using people as human shields in this case. But the fact that any of these terrorists were held even slightly accountable infuriated the settlers. And so they set off a chain of confrontations between them and Israeli security forces in the area. Soldiers shot and wounded an Israeli teenager on Friday during a clash with the settlers. So let's get into those details in just a minute. First, brief comment from Cenk.
Yeah, so I was debating an Israeli supporter on a program called Counterpoints earlier today. And he started describing this apocalyptic religious zealots who wouldn't hesitate to kill civilians. And I'm like, you mean Israeli settlers? Because he was talking about theoretically the Iranian regime, but Iran is not starting wars, Israel's starting wars. So, but it's always projection. So these settlers are nuts. They're religious zealots, and they think that God gave them that land, so they get to murder the Palestinians on the land to take it because God whispered in their ear about how they murder, and it's okay, God's on your side. And they're just Palestinians, murder their babies. They're terrorists. And they came in to steal the land in the first place. And they say, no, we're not stealing it because it's Judea and Samaria. Anyone who says Judea and Samaria is basically saying, I'm a terrorist who'd like to steal Palestinian land. And I don't mind murdering Palestinians to do it. Because there is no other explanation for, hey, the entire international community says West Bank and Gaza Strip should be part of a two-state solution and become independent Palestine. And the settlers go, no, I want the land because my murderous God in their fantasies said that I should murder the Muslims and take their land.
But by the way,
you're a religious zealot lunatics. So I'm not interested, like in the old days, you couldn't even say like things that are factual about the settlers because people would be like, anti-Semite. Of course they get to murder Muslims. Of course they do. No, they don't. They're the bigots. They're nuts. They're lunatics.
Yeah.
And so they cause more war, more problems, more deaths than almost anyone on the planet. So get real about who the frickin' settlers are. Some of the worst people on earth.
So this past Sunday, as the Associated Press reports, dozens of Israeli settlers rioted around a military base in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, setting fires, vandalizing military vehicles, spraying graffiti, and attacking soldiers. Again, we're talking about Israeli on Israeli violence here. We're talking about settlers attacking, Israeli security forces. The Israeli military said that the infrastructure burned in the attack included systems that help thwart terrorist attacks and maintain security.
The only terrorists in the West Bank are the settlers. Okay, so let's get real about who the terrorists are. And you understand why they're rioting against the IDF? Because the IDF showed up and only murdered 3 innocent Palestinians. They were trying to burn the whole village down.
That's exactly right, yes.
And then they're like, what are you stopping us for? We were gonna murder all of them.
But by the way, IDF has been providing cover for the crimes committed by these settlers for how many years?
Endlessly.
For how many years? So you've created a monster. Now revel in it, enjoy. This is what you have enabled. You just thought that it would never turn around and impact the IDF or Israeli security forces. They were just under the assumption that the only people who would be terrorized, the only people who would be run out of their own homes would be Palestinians. And by the way, there are also, Christians living in the occupied West Bank as well who also get terrorized by these people. But they were under the assumption those are the only people who are gonna be victimized. We don't have to worry about any Israeli dealing with these unhinged terrorists who have been raining terror on people living in the West Bank for many years now.
One quick point. So Bethlehem is the home of Jesus, of course, and Christians live there. There's a church there. That church has been attacked before by settlers. And so they're not just attacking Muslims. They're saying Judea and Samaria, God told us, is Jewish settler land, and you Christians need to get out of here. You Muslims need to get out of here, otherwise we're gonna kill you all on behalf of our God. I mean, there isn't any bigger terrorists in the world than those Israeli settlers who are constantly attacking Christian and Muslim Palestinians because they think God told them to steal their land.
So look, 6 suspects were allegedly apprehended and then transferred to the police in Israel. But this is my favorite part. Settlers were even caught on tape accusing the IDF of being Hamas. Let's watch. You guys eventually are gonna have to find a new scapegoat. Like blaming Hamas for everything is kind of amazing.
No,
it's
that was
kind
perfect.
of amazing.
That was
like,
perfect.
wow.
No, I love that video. Good, attack each other more. Like 2 of the worst forces on earth. And the settlers somehow miraculously worse than the IDF, right? And to the settlers, they're such lunatics. They think the IDF is Hamas.
It's amazing, it really is.
You know when your propaganda has gone too far is when you think the IDF is Hamas. And let me guess, the IDF is anti-Semitic, right? Okay, look, I hope they do a 2-state solution, and this is the one time I'll cheer for the IDF. By the way, if Israel becomes a safe haven for Jews who have two-state solution, they don't attack anyone anymore and stop taking land, then I'd be super happy with the IDF, right? Okay, but the one time I'll cheer for them is if they do a two-state solution and they grab those settlers and then drag them back into Israel. That is going to be a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah,
I can't wait for that. I don't know that I'll ever see it in my lifetime.
No, you won't. So look, Netanyahu and
because by the way, the Israeli government supports terrorists. That's why I'm not going to see it in my lifetime. That's why they keep encouraging them by giving them 22 new settlements, because they love terrorists as long as they're murdering Muslims and Christians.
Remember, the IDF in the West Bank is there to protect the settlers as they are running Palestinians out of their homes, as they're burning villages. That's typically what happens. Now look, Netanyahu and even Itamar Ben-Gvir, a convicted terrorist, literally, publicly claimed to condemn the settler attacks on the IDF, likely because attacks on IDF soldiers, Haaretz West Bank correspondent Hagar Shezaf said, are obviously always controversial in Israeli society, but attacking Palestinians, not so controversial anymore. Opposition leader,
like it was ever.
It never was. Let's just be clear about that. Opposition leader Yair Lapid told Israel's army radio that the riots were carried out by Jewish terrorists, gangs of criminals who feel backed by the governing coalition, because they've been backed by the governing coalition. Let's be real about that.
You know what? Look, we're experiencing this a little bit. My family members are in Turkey, okay? Because Erdogan started letting in a lot more Muslim fundamentalists from Afghanistan, from Syria, from other places. And what it's doing is, Turkey's a very secular country, so it's starting this huge conflict within the country. Not starting, it's been now for a while. And so the secular group feels impinged upon by the fundamentalists. And the fundamentalists are like, what do you mean? God told us X, Y, Z. Well, fundamentalists from every religion believe that the God whispered in their ear that they're the Baghdadis, right? And everybody else is inferior to them and should serve them, right? So now Israel, you're not getting it. If you're a secular person in Israel, a citizen, you think they're just gonna stop at the Palestinians? No, fundamentalists are nuts. They're gonna come for you next. That's why they're calling the IDF Hamas. You think that once they get to be the majority, and yes, fundamentalists in all the different religions have more kids, okay? Once they get to be the majority in Israel, if you think Israel's bad now, and if you think Israel's bad for Palestinians, no, it's gonna be terrible for secular Jews in Israel. Terrible. You think these guys won't rip you apart and call you Hamas? All right, wait for it.
Yeah, well, enjoy the monster that you've nurtured. Now, Israeli law enforcement rarely holds settlers accountable for their criminal behavior. And that's why we have arrived at the day that you see the settlers attacking IDF soldiers. Now, Yesh Din, an Israeli rights group that examined more than 1,600 cases of settler violence in the West Bank between 2005 and 2023, found that just 3% ended in a conviction. And finally, settler attacks injured more than 220 Palestinians during the first 5 months of 2025, the highest rate in years, according to the United Nations. Settlers killed a Palestinian man on June 19th, the UN says. Hundreds of Palestinians, by the way, have been killed in the West Bank since the beginning of the genocide in Gaza. Starting in October of 2023. And so that's what we're dealing with here. These are unhinged lunatics who have been able to behave the way they've been behaving, violently, with impunity. And when you tell people engaging in bad behavior over and over again that it's totally fine, continue engaging in said bad behavior, don't be surprised when that bad behavior turns around and starts attacking you, because that's what's happening right now. Anyway, let's do one more story before we take a break. This is a little different, but it still has to do with cruelty. It's just that the cruelty is happening here on US soil.
The facility is in the heart of the Everglades and will be informally known as Alligator Alcatraz. There is only one road leading in, and the only way out is a one-way flight. It is isolated and surrounded by dangerous wildlife and unforgiving terrain. The facility will have up to 5,000 beds to house, process, and deport criminal illegal aliens.
Because cruelty is the point. Cruelty is the point. That was White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt giddily giddily announcing that Trump would be touring an intentionally inhumane detention facility for migrants that the administration has dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. Now, while she claims that it would hold 5,000 criminal migrants, data that we've shared with you on the show before, in fact, we did so last week, indicates that the vast majority of immigrants, undocumented individuals who have been detained by the Trump administration have not been convicted of or even accused of any crimes. So calling them criminals is rich when that's not actually what's happening here. Now, before we get to more on this story, just a reminder of what Alligator Alcatraz is all about.
Alligator Alcatraz. This 30 square mile area is completely surrounded by the Everglades. Presents a efficient, low-cost opportunity to build a temporary detention facility because you don't need to invest that much in the perimeter. People get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide.
Now, Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem joined Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for the opening of this controversial immigrant detention facility. It'll cost about $450 million a year to detain thousands of migrants in this facility. DeSantis's administration used its emergency powers to expedite $450 million per year for this facility, which DeSantis has said will be able to hold up to 3,000 undocumented immigrants. Now, they're hoping that FEMA will reimburse them for the $450 million that it'll cost each year to basically detain undocumented immigrants in this facility. The entire compound was constructed in just 7 days. I'm sure that constructing something in 7 days ensures that it's going to treat people humanely, right? Human beings. Look, at the end of the day, these are human beings. Like, I get that there are Republican voters who, for whatever reason, think that if someone's in the country illegally, well, they're subhuman and should be treated as such. I disagree with that.
Yeah.
I totally disagree with that. But cruelty is the point here. And the Trump administration isn't even hiding that. Yeah. They think, okay, if we make this a terrible place and undocumented immigrants are fearful about ending up here, maybe they'll self-deport. That's the whole point.
Well, there's a second political thing that they're doing, which I think is a huge miscalculation. So first, look, who's an average undocumented immigrant? So my family came over with, in a documented fashion. We got a green card, did everything right, and then became citizens. So it's easy for me to say like, hey, we waited in line, they should wait in line. Okay, sure, they should. And I don't think that they should cross the border illegally. And I think we're right to return folks who are crossing illegally. We're certainly right if they're criminals and they came in here and they committed crimes. No, we don't have to house criminals that came here, no way, right? But is that the average undocumented immigrant?
No.
No. The way that the Trump and the Republicans decided to talk about it, it's like 98% of them are from gangs. That's not true at all. It's a tiny percentage. And as we've told you many times, natural born citizens unfortunately commit crime at a greater rate than undocumented immigrants. So proportionally, they're less likely to be criminals. And it makes sense, you get why, because they're here, they're worried about losing their ability to stay here, so they're a little bit more careful. So who's the average guy who's undocumented? He's a guy who went through incredible danger to get into this country. Why? To work his ass off for 80 hours a week at much lower rates than you, so that he could return money to his family at home. Or maybe he brings his family here to give opportunity to his kids. You could say, hey, he's doing it the wrong way. Do you really want him eaten by alligators?
No, but that's the thing. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to have and by the way, if someone's been in the country for decades, they're undocumented, but they haven't committed any crimes and they're like productive members of society, we need to have a pathway for citizenship for these people. We do. Right now, you enter the country illegally, even if you're here for decades, there is no pathway to citizenship for you. It is insanely difficult and rare for that person to ever become a citizen of this country. So I think we need to change that. I think we desperately need immigration reform. But with that said, can we please not dehumanize people simply because they're in the country with undocumented status. They're still human beings at the end of the day. Treating them as if they're, again, subhuman, that they should be dehumanized, that they should be put in a facility that doesn't care about human rights at all, that's inhumane, I just think is wrong, and it doesn't speak well of the country. I wanna be proud of the country I live in. I get it, law and order. No one has gotten more heat from the left for being in favor of law and order. But at the same time, I will never, ever be in favor of dehumanizing people simply because they came to this country with the hope of building a better life for themselves.
Yeah, so look guys, we read in civics class, history class when we were all growing up about indentured servants, right? So there was slavery and then there was indentured servants and they would bring them over and they had to serve 7 years for their master, right? But they would get the housing and stuff and then at the end, they would get to stay in America. And we learned that as something cruel, just a tiny bit under slavery, right? Well, not a tiny bit because only 7 years versus your whole life, and slavery was just the worst thing in the world. But still, it was in that same sentence, right? Now, they tried Pathway to Citizenship a bunch of years ago. They were gonna make it so that you had to serve 14 years, twice as long as indentured servants, right? And in a similar way, yeah, you get housing and you get some wages, et cetera, but it's much lower than if you were a citizen, et cetera. And then in the Pathway to Citizenship, after twice as long, you'd get to stay and be a US citizen, right? And they said that was too lenient. Twice indentured servitude, too lenient, right? No, it's not too lenient. That's crazy. You need to have, if we're gonna bring these people in because we need the cheap labor, keep it real, that's why they're here, right? Then let's make a rational, conscious decision and say, okay, if you serve this amount of time working your ass off in the hardest jobs in the world, yes, you get a pathway to citizenship, but you got to follow the rules and all of that, right?
You serve in the military, like they're again, it's not saying, oh, you entered the country illegally and you've just been here for X number of years, so we're just gonna give you a pass. No, you pass legislation that ensures that they contribute something specific, right? Whether it's serving in the military, doing community service, I don't know, and I don't care. My point is, it is not a good look when we have a government that seems very giddy about dehumanizing people.
Yeah, okay. And so that leads to the political calculation point that I was gonna make, Anna. I think that they genuinely think, these MAGA guys, the Trump, the Stephen Miller, et cetera, that they think that the country overall is as cruel as the radical right is and as they are. So they really think this is gonna play well. That's why they're hyping it up. That's why they've been talking about it. The videos, he goes to, you think it's an accident that the president is visiting it? No, they're trying to market it
they're marketing it
as aggressively as they can. And what they're announcing to the citizens is, we're super sick, cruel people who like to not just take care of problems we have, but to dehumanize people, belittle them, and maybe have them eaten by alligators because Trump is Nero or some sort of like twisted Roman emperor who's lost his frickin' mind. So they think that the country loves that. I think they're gonna see soon the country does not love that. Your radical right loves that, and that's what I voted for. Immigrants eaten by alligators, right? But no, 80% of the country doesn't want that. So he's kind of walking himself into a disaster politically, if you ask me. But it's at some point, those independents who voted for him have got to go, oh, right, no, this is not good for me. This is terrible. It's not good for anybody.
Okay, final thing I'm gonna say about this story. There was a 75-year-old Cuban man that was detained by ICE. He's been in the country or was in the country for 60 years. He died in ICE custody. Tom Homan was asked about it, Trump's border czar, and he totally minimized it. Yeah, people die. People die in prison. People die in detention. That was a human being, 75-year-old man. Really, that's our enemy? That's the guy who needs to be detained and thrown into detention? He's been in the country for 60 years.
Guys, the Roman analogy is a little like on the nose because the Romans fed the Christians to the lions, and are they gonna take that poor Cuban guy and feed him to the alligators? I mean, they're literally talking about feeding human beings to alligators.
There's
Is this
more.
America? This is America?
There's more.
This is sick.
Former Trump administration official Ken Cuccinelli told CNN anchor Jake Tapper, quote, "We're all going to die." And that was in response to a question about the death of the 75-year-old Cuban man. Yeah.
All right, if this is the cruelty you signed up for, okay.
Cruelty's the point.
Yeah, well, look yourself in the mirror, man. And are you the moral one? You're the moral one? I don't think so.
By the way, Cuban Americans, huge part of the MAGA base and Republican base. I don't know if the Republican Party really wants to brand themselves this way, but I do think that there will be political consequences.
Yeah, and back in the day, the Republicans would be like, "Oh no, the Cubans, the Venezuelans, the North Koreans, anyone escaping communism is welcome here." Now they changed their mind on that.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, if you were a Venezuelan that escaped from Venezuela or Cuban or whatever, and you thought you were safe, brother, they still think you're not the same as them.
Yeah.
And so, and you're about to find out. And so, okay, if you're MAGA, enjoy the alligators. I hope soon you're going to be the only ones, right? And if you're not MAGA and you're the rest of the country, we got to get these guys out of here. I mean, is this what we're going to become? Are we okay with this? That other countries think, oh yeah, if you go to America, they'll feed you to the alligators because they're nuts. They're sick people who like to feed people to the lions or gators or whatever. And in fact, Trump was talking about bringing crocodiles and alligators back into the Rio Grande so that they could eat people trying to cross the river. I mean, what is he, Dr. Evil? This is so maniacal.
So stupid. Anyway, all right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Trump administration threatening to sue CNN for doing journalism. We'll be back.
Let's go to Super Chat. History Speaks says, most illegal immigrants are good people who want better wages / opportunities for their kids, but allowing illegal immigration with no enforcement undermines US citizenship and is destabilizing. Tough issue, but cruelty / dehumanization must be opposed. Okay, okay, yes. We can have real discussions about what should our laws be, how should we enforce our laws, but nowhere in that discussion should be, when do we feed them to the alligators? All right, Titan writes in about Israel, but have you been there? Okay, good point, Titan. The Cuckoo's Nest, by the way, somebody asked me the other day, hey, what do you think of Douglas Murray? And they kind of liked him. And I was like, sorry, I think he's a moron. Hey, the Cuckoo's Nest says, Musk is not only concerned about the subsidies, he also hates that local governments can now regulate AI. Currently, Musk is destroying the environment and the people of Memphis. Now Memphis can regulate. Yeah, well, first of all those big giant corporate heads, they don't like to be regulated at all. That's generally why they love Republicans. They're going, oh, you're taking away all the laws that would constrain us? Yes, right? But now all of a sudden they're having a falling out and Elon, poor Elon's not being protected. Cuckoo's Nest also wrote in, actually most Dems don't campaign on the issues. They speak in platitudes and on open secrets. It's all about super PAC money. For example, Mallory McMorrow doesn't have a single issue and her funding comes from super PACs. But honestly, that's like 80% of Democrats. Like, if you think that the Democrat, and I know so many good Democratic voters are good, earnest people who genuinely believe that their Democratic representative is actually a good guy and actually cares about these bills. They don't care about the issues at all. Okay, not all of them, but 80% of them. They just like, where's the money? Where's the money? Money, 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 money. They're obsessed with money. Just go to Washington, meet anyone on Capitol Hill, and they'll tell you the same thing. They're all obsessed with money. They don't care. Okay, maybe in one of these bonus episodes, I'll tell you guys a story about that shows you how little they care about any of the issues. President Hambone writes in, I'm a US-born engineer watching my immigrant father retire to Ethiopia with a better quality of life than me. I love America, but who's this country even for anymore? People who are sleeping, I bet. I love the idea of America. We got to get back to that. And I'm 100% with you, brother. 00083 says, #Cenk was right again. Yes, this is a game of good cop, bad cop. And when they both smile, Republicans and Democrats, we get screwed. Look, guys, I mean, we tell you what's going to happen before it happens, and then you see it happen. So that's why it's not because we're particularly smart. It's because it's very, very predictable. They're crooks. They get paid by the criminal donors to give them our money, and then they get their money. That's what happens every time. Every time. You'd have to be dumb not to figure it out. That's why I get so frustrated with cable news and mainstream media. They're like, what's going on? What's the debate about? Like drooling here. Jesus, man.
They know what the debate is.
I don't even think they do, actually. I don't think they do. Brad Davis said, Cenk, my favorite part of TYT is the fun, interesting stories in the bonus episode. Is there any way you can do all these interviews on the main show rather than taking away the bonus episode? We're gonna try to do more bonus episodes, including today.
Have you been there?
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and World Hub of Organized Potential, which gifted a membership on YouTube, and Melody Loves Music, who gifted 5, and so did Coops, that just came in. You guys are awesome, we love you guys. We're gonna do Operation Joy for the members tonight. So if you're a member, it's a great time to be a member. We're gonna try to make you a little bit happier. You'd be surprised, we often succeed. Okay, that is a little surprising, right? And we're gonna do a project together in the bonus episode. I think you guys are gonna love it. All right, tyt.com/join. Anna.
Let's get to our next story.
Turns out right now that CNN is pushing an app to track ICE agents to help criminal aliens evade being detained. We have the article up right here along with the clip. What's your response to CNN?
It's disgusting. I mean, this is horrendous that a national media outlet will be out there trying to forecast law enforcement operations throughout the country. I mean, it's incredible where we're at as a nation, and I think DOJ needs to look at this and see if they're crossing that line.
CNN merely reported on the existence of said app, but you have 2 people that you just heard from. I don't know if there are 2 brain cells among the 2 of them to rub together, but they are under the impression, allegedly, I don't even know if they actually believe this, that CNN is promoting an app that alerts individuals about ICE raids and ICE activity, which would put ICE agents in threat, right, at risk. That's what they're claiming here, okay?
So I'm just gonna jump in for a second. I thought in the beginning when I saw the headlines that CNN had come up with the app. I was a little surprised by it, right?
No, they just reported on it.
No, I know. And so then, but even then I was like, okay, there's like the guy who's tracking Elon Musk's flight. It makes me a little uncomfortable, but they're certainly allowed to do it, right? But then when you find out CNN just reported on some dude's app, are we not allowed to report on any apps? Or is it just like, I need to know what the standard is? If it hurts the feelings of Donald Trump, or, I mean, this is just ludicrous. And they're talking about arresting people at CNN. Are you out of your frickin' mind? All right, now the rest of the story.
All right, well, I guess we're gonna put ourselves in a little bit of danger in the Trump administration's crosshairs, because this app, which is known as IceBlock, was developed by a tech innovator by the name of Joshua Aaron in response to the Trump administration's ramped up ICE raids and deportations. But CNN, again, is not advertising the app, okay? They're not promoting it, they're not the people behind the app, they merely reported on it. In fact, here's part of the segment in question.
One tech developer is pushing back with an app designed to track ICE activity in real time. It's called ICE block, and it's controversial to say the least.
I talked with Joshua Aaron, who is the longtime tech worker who developed this platform, and he said he really wants it to be an early warning system for people about the location of immigrations and customs enforcement officers. So he says he does not want people interfering with those officers' activity, but he does want people to be able to avoid them altogether if they want. So you open the app, it looks like a map, and users can tap the map to report an ICE sighting in their area, and then everybody who uses the platform within 5 miles of that sighting will get a push alert.
And in a corresponding CNN article, their tech reporter writes, Aaron, meaning the man behind this actual app, said he hopes those notifications will help people avoid interactions with ICE. Avoid interactions with ICE, noting that he does not want users to interfere with the agency's operations. The app provides a similar warning when users log a sighting. Please note that the use of this app is for information and notification purposes only. It is not to be used for the purposes of inciting violence or interfering with law enforcement. Nonetheless, Homeland HHS Secretary Kristi Noem and Donald Trump have now joined Tom Homan's calls for CNN to be prosecuted. Take a look.
CNN yesterday pushed an app that lets you track where ICE agents are. Tom Homan was saying that perhaps CNN should be prosecuted for that. As obstruction of law enforcement. Your response?
Yeah, we're working with the Department of Justice to see if we can prosecute them for that, because what they're doing is actively encouraging people to avoid law enforcement activities, operations, and we're going to actually go after them and prosecute them with the partnership of PAM if we can, because what they're doing we believe is illegal.
And they may be prosecuted also for having given false reports on the attack in Iran. So they may be very well prosecuted for that. What they did there we think is totally illegal.
Anyone remember the whining about lawfare? What happened?
Yeah.
Now we're talking about prosecuting CNN for reporting about the existence of an app.
But because these dumbasses made this such a huge issue, now every press organization has talked about Trump threatening to arrest CNN for covering the app, and in doing so, everyone has covered the app.
100%, exactly. I didn't know about this app.
And by the way, you know who I found out about the app from? Kristi Noem and Donald Trump. That was the first story I saw. Arrest them!
I can't believe they're promoting an app like this. Oh my gosh, someone should look into prosecuting them.
Yeah, and CNN actually had a leak that was reported to them like every news organization for my entire lifetime. But that leak hurt Donald Trump's feelings about how what a nice military strike he had. So he wants them arrested and prosecuted for doing journalism. That's why he was in favor of freedom of speech. So it looks like a little bit of cancel culture when you try to cancel anyone who reports on things.
No, by the way, the Iran strikes were beautiful, perfectly done, well done, President Trump. You did it. You don't have to worry about Iran anymore. Please move on.
Yeah, I want him to move on. I don't.
Please move on.
We covered that story and we said, hey, you know what? These leaks are meant to instigate more war.
Exactly.
So policy-wise, we agree with Donald Trump. Should we arrest the reporters? Are you nuts?
I mean, in that case, maybe.
No.
No, I know, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Okay, and so look, CNN, when they were reporting on it, called it controversial. And you can say, you know what, if you don't like the app, they outed the app, right? Earlier in the show, we covered these despicable Israeli settlers murdering innocent Palestinians in the West Bank. Does that mean that since we covered it, we're in favor of the Israeli settlers? No, of course not. Just because CNN covered the app, does that mean that CNN is in favor of the app? No, of course not. None of this makes any sense. And by the way, if you're a news organization,
by the way, I'm in favor of the app. I'm in favor of the app.
Yeah, but that's what I'm going to go to next.
I'm in favor of more information for people. You want to avoid ICE raids? Great. I'm glad this app exists. What are you going to do?
Guys, in our GPSs now, it pops up to tell you that there's police nearby, so you slow down before the speed trap.
It's great. It's my favorite thing.
That's standard in a lot of GPSs. Oh, are you trying to tell them where the cops are? You all need to be arrested with your stupid GPSs. I'm gonna put you all in alligator Alcatraz. Look, you sound like you lost your stupid mind, right? whatever little you had of it. Okay, there's police stations all across the country. We all know where they are. They have addresses. You're telling people where the police are. Yeah, people need to know what their government does. And they need to know where the police station is. And so if ICE is there and there's an app, so what? Okay, I know, but don't ever cross the government. The government will get you and hunt you down. That is why we're so worried about the tyranny of government.
Now, Trump loves targeting the press. He has 4 personal lawsuits against media organizations, including CBS, the Des Moines Register, Gannett, and also the Pulitzer Center. And yesterday, Trump dropped the federal lawsuit against Iowa pollster and Seltzer and the Des Moines Register, only to refile in state court hours later.
No, like let's just, last thing. We have to break down what a bitch Trump is about that, okay? So look, she had a dumbass poll that got all the Democrats excited that Kamala Harris was gonna win. And then Kamala Harris didn't win. Let it go, let it go. Brother, you won Iowa, you won the 7 swing states, you won the popular vote. What else do you want? Why are you suing this random pollster who is already embarrassed into retirement because she got it so wrong? Right? No, because Donald Trump's skin is like, scientists should study it. It's the thinnest skin ever created by God. Like if you just tweak him, I want you arrested and deported and denaturalized. You hurt my feelings. And you reported on things. Why do you guys see this guy as strong? I don't get it. I really don't get it. A lot of MAGA thinks that they're tough guys, and they have picked the weakest guy to get behind, who's always in his feelings.
Always in his feelings.
Like, oh, I'm so hurt. Why did CNN do this to me? Why did this random pollster in Iowa who had no effect at all do this to me? Jesus Christ, man up. And he can't. He thinks his idea of being a man is just being cruel. Oh yeah, I'll have people eaten by alligators. No, that's not manly. Manly's protecting people. It's not trying to feed him to the alligators.
Well, he just said something pretty cruel about Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of his biggest supporters in Congress. So when we come back, I'm gonna share that story with you and more. Don't miss it.
Okay, Titan wrote back in our super chat. Thank you, TYT staff, and whoever played the "Have You Been There" soundbite. It hit at the perfect time and resulted in laughter throughout the house. LOL. TYT never lets me down on all fronts. Thank you, Titan. Yeah.
Have you been there?
Okay, there you go. Ask and ye shall receive. Titan was in the last Operation Hope we did. We're doing one tomorrow. Make sure you check it out. 8:30 p.m. Eastern after the bonus episode, and I'll be there, and we'll talk through strategy and plans for how to bring hope back into the country, and we have created amazing things through Operation Hope. So sign up now at tyt.com/hope. All right, YouTube member Zachary Stabel writes in, serious question, with all the cuts to Medicaid, will we see a decrease in what is taken out of our checks? Keep up the good fight, TYT.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
No, because where did it go? The $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid goes straight to people making above $500,000. It's both are about $1 trillion. So if you, oh, by the way, to be fair, if you make above $500,000, then you're gonna see it. Yeah, you're gonna see a big dividend in your check. And by the way, if you're in that category and you feel good about all the money you saved, think about like, oh, thank God. Now poor people won't be able to get health care. Oh, yes. Okay, congratulations, rich folks. You did a great job of buying our politicians. And you must be so proud.
New Tea Party.
What's that?
New Tea Party.
I know. John Williams, Cenk is right. Tax cuts are why we're in debt. We should use the years of growth and profit as opportunity to force companies to cover social needs, especially for their workers directly. But the minute you talk about, hey, can the corporations pay their fair share? Oh my God, they cry more than Trump. Oh, you can't let my corporation have 2% extra taxes. Yeah, you guys have been getting all the subsidies. You know that corporate taxes used to be 42% of the taxes we collected? You know what they are now? 12.5. They shifted the tax burden onto all of us by buying our politicians. That's what they did. Corporations should exist. I think billionaires should exist. I don't even know what it means for them not to exist. But I know they shouldn't buy our government, and I know they shouldn't buy our politicians. And only 98% of Americans agree with me. All right, Jasper Chu says, just for fun, do you think the bill should be called one big ass bill? Also, do you still believe that tariffs will stop after this bill passes? So I think it should be called the butt ugly bill. And I think that, yeah, the tariffs are already like, Trump's we got a great deal with China. We got a great deal, great deal. As soon as the bill passes, yeah, I'll be surprised if you hear too much. There'll be a little bit scattering of stuff. And then like a year from now, you're like, oh yeah, remember the tariffs? Whatever happened to the tariffs? Oh right, like about a month and a half after they passed that giant tax cut for the rich, then we never heard about it again. All right, Gal471 says on Twitch, can Trump make Tom Massey lose? No, I'm in Massey's district, never voted for him. And the people here like him way too much to go for a maggot, he says.
I mean, I hope you're right.
Yeah, I hope you're right too. Valkos13 says, here's your Bezos box. It's true, if you have Amazon Prime, you can get membership for us on Twitch for free, but we still get the money. It doesn't cost you anything. And how you do that, tyt.com/prime. So for his wedding, you can get us a gift from Jeff Bezos. tyt.com/prime. The Notorious ROB said, I ran out of time. I'll be back. Back on TYT Jankanana with you guys. I was just reading a comment on Twitch during the break. The Notorious ROB said, I see what a joke both sides are. This is horrific and disgusting and both sides' fault. Look, it's money in politics that's the fault. The Democrats used to be a perfectly great party during the FDR year. I mean, they had problems, but overall, they were trying to serve the average guy.
Yeah.
But we lost that as soon as we allowed money in politics. All right, Anna.
Yeah, and I, by the way, agree with you entirely. Both parties are just a complete and utter disaster. Anyway, let's talk about this random statement from Trump on Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Hi, Brian. Doing all right? Ron, this is the boyfriend, very lucky, of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, really? He works for who?
He works for Real America's Way.
Oh, okay, good.
You think it's easy being with Marjorie?
She
was working out pretty hard this weekend.
Yes, she was, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
Well, you just watched President Donald Trump introduce Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to a gentleman by the name of Brian Glenn, and then ask DeSantis if he thinks it's easy dating Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Ouch.
Now, Glenn is the chief White House correspondent for Real America's Voice and also happens to be Congresswoman Greene's boyfriend. Now, it's kind of hard to make out in the video, but I'm pretty sure that Glenn's response to Trump's question is, I can take some heat. I could be wrong, but that's what it sounded like. Now, here's how he addressed Trump's comment on social media, posting on X. This is the boyfriend, very lucky, of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do you think it's easy being with Marjorie? And then he writes, I'm not going to answer that, kidding. And then he tags Marjorie Greene and says that she's a joy to be with and I love her with all my heart. Trump's kind of a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, when you do that to one of your top supporters,
yeah,
that's, again, we go back to cruelty, right? So yeah, we've had a billion, criticisms of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they know it, right? And so Marjorie Taylor Greene asked us, John Irola, et cetera, to be nicer to her when she was on. Brian Glenn came up to us in both the conventions and said, we know you're tough on us, et cetera, but at least we're fair, right? And we don't do weirdo personal attacks.
Right, yeah, I'm not really interested in, well, yeah, sometimes I do personal attacks.
Well, okay, I don't know, but we try not to. Like, I don't, like, commenting on people's bodies, blah, 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 is not a thing that progressives should be doing, right? So anyways.
Sometimes I'll allow it.
Yeah, anyways, but so
this is gross, yeah.
Trump So, oh, it's tough to be. I don't know. What,
yeah, what is that even supposed to mean?
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to say? Is it because she's outspoken? And look, I think it's
that's the most generous interpretation.
Yeah.
And even that is like, oh, being with a strong woman, I guess that must be tough. Yeah, I guess if you're weak, it's tough. Right?
I mean, my husband's very strong.
So there you go.
I'm also an outspoken woman, so. No, honestly, it reminded me.
But I don't think that's what he meant, by the way.
No, I don't think that's what he meant either. I remember when I was engaged in debate with that Adam Sosnick guy from the PBD podcast. This is like a few weeks ago. We're debating about Israel, and his arguments were weak sauce. He was flailing, and so his go-to was to throw a tampon at me. But before he did that, he said something along the lines of, "Oh, men must hate you." Now he's a 45-year-old man who's unmarried, and I'm married. So I was like, "No, I'm actually married." And then he tried to claim that my husband's feminine. Okay,
but
like it's just
it doesn't make any sense.
Total listen. If you think strong women are difficult to be with, I agree with you, Cenk. That must speak very low of you and your personal strength. You know what I'm saying?
That means you just can't handle it. Like you need someone who doesn't challenge you because you can't stand up to a challenge. And I mean intellectually, I mean in every way, right? So okay, but if you're MAGA and you enjoy this when he makes fun of other people on your own side.
On your own side, she's like one of his biggest supporters.
I mean, and again, like when I always think shoe on the other foot. What if Bernie did this? And I'm like,
there's no way. It wouldn't even cross his mind.
Bernie's irascible, but I can't. There's no world in which Bernie does this to someone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're going out with Nina Turner. That must be wrong. What? No, that would never happen. Never, right?
Yeah.
Because he's a good, decent person. And so if you enjoy this, go ahead and enjoy it. But I don't think it's for a lot of people.
All right, final story for you before we go over to our bonus episode.
You guys proud to be Americans? I enjoy the benefits that come with living in America, but I can't say that I'm always proud of what America does on like an international level.
My parents are immigrants, so I would say leaving their country to come to this country really did help me a lot because I probably wouldn't have had as good as a life I do have now, but I would not use the word proud. I just am an American.
Well, according to a new Gallup poll, Americans are becoming less and less proud to actually call themselves American, to be Americans. And there are multiple reasons why that might be the case. We can get into those reasons in just a second. But first, here are the results of the poll. US adults' pride in being an American between 2001 to 2025. As you can see this year, the US has hit a record low of 58% of US adults saying they're either extremely or very proud to be an American. 41% say extremely proud, 17% say very proud. The numbers were obviously higher at 87% all the way back over at when in 2001 it was 87%, so it's gone down to 58%.
Now obviously 9/11 happened there, but it was at around 87% all the way in 2004, right? So that stuck around for a long time, and it was higher before then as well. So 58 still sounds like a decent number, but dropping from 87 to 58 over the last 20 years is problematic. I'll get to my thoughts on it in a second.
In addition to the 58% of US adults who are extremely or very proud, 19% say they are moderately proud, 11% only a little proud, and 9% not at all proud. The combined 20% on the lower end of the pride scale essentially ties the record 21% measured in 2020. Until 2018, less than 10% of US adults had consistently said they had little or no national pride. Now keep in mind, this poll was done prior to the United States and our military striking Iran's nuclear facilities. I don't know if that would even change any of the results in this polling. However, in January of 2001, when Gallup first asked Americans how proud they were, again, 87% said that they were extremely or very proud. After the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the figure actually did increase to 90%, and it held at that level or higher between 2002 and 2004. So Gallup didn't get into the exact reasons why Americans are feeling less proud today compared to decades ago, but I am curious what you think, Cenk.
Yeah, so look, I'll give you my take on it. I'm proud to be an American, and I don't hesitate to say that I love the country. I also don't hesitate to say that it needs a lot of reform and a lot of help. And I also don't hesitate to criticize our government under Democratic or Republican presidents, because if you love something, you want to make it better. You don't want to say, oh, you know what? Hey, things are devolving. We have money in politics. Our politicians are bought. That's okay. Love it or leave it. No, that doesn't make any sense. So we look to make it better. That doesn't mean you have to hate the country, right? So don't do that. No. Don't do that. Because then why are you here? Because look, and I don't mean that in like a love it or leave it kind of way. I mean like this is our home. This is your home, right? So what do you do with your home? Do you give up on it? Do you get angry at it? Do you curse it? Or do you try to make it better?
I think you can love your country and still feel shame about what being American represents at this current moment. Look, for me, funding the bombs that Israel is using in its genocide is deeply, deeply shameful. It is hard for me to feel pride about my American identity knowing that my government is doing that with my tax dollars.
No, I understand it 100%.
That doesn't mean I don't love the country. I love this country deeply. I just wish we weren't engaged in this awful genocide and dehumanizing behavior.
So, and I'm not criticizing especially the younger people who say, well, you want me to be proud, but now I can't afford a house, I can't afford anything, I have student debts that are strangling me, we live under corporate rule, etc. So I'm not in the camp of love it or leave it, you better not criticize America, you better not try to fix anything. No, that's ridiculous, right? At the same time, as you're struggling with all that stuff, guys, we all live here. This is our collective home. Let's make the home better so that we can be proud of it.
All right, Operation Joy is next. TYT.com/join to become a member if you aren't one already, and we'll see you there.